What happens when a joke meant to get a laugh becomes the reason your husband hands you divorce papers? How could one careless insult at a family dinner tear a marriage apart, leaving you holding the blame while he quietly gathers proof? Can honesty fix what cruelty broke, or does it only speed up the ending? The candlelight flickered across the white tablecloth at Romano's, casting dancing shadows on the faces of our extended family. It was supposed to be a celebration. Graham's mother, Miriam's 62nd birthday. The whole family was there. My sister Jules, Graham's cousins, even some family friends. And Shane Marwick, Graham's old college buddy who worked with me at the insurance office. I should have felt happy. Instead, I felt invisible. Graham sat beside me in his usual silence, methodically cutting his salmon into perfect squares. He'd barely spoken to me all week, just grunted responses when I tried to start conversations. The man I married 7 years ago used to laugh at my jokes, used to look at me like I was the most fascinating woman in the room. Now he looked at his phone more than he looked at me. "So, Graham," Shane said, leaning back in his chair with that charming smile of his. "Still working on that downtown project?" "Yes," Graham replied simply. No elaboration, no enthusiasm, just yes. The silence stretched uncomfortably. I glanced around the table. Miriam was watching Graham with concern, Jules was texting someone, and our 7-year-old daughter Etta was picking at her chicken fingers, sensing the tension like kids always do. I needed to do something, say something, make this dinner memorable. "You know what's funny?" I said, my voice cutting through the quiet conversation. "Graham's been so focused on building these massive skyscrapers, but sometimes I wonder if he's compensating for something." A few people chuckled nervously. Shane raised an eyebrow with interest. "I mean," I continued, feeling emboldened by the attention, "maybe he builds them so tall because he's too tiny to be a father figure himself." The words hung in the air like smoke from a fire that had just started. I'd meant it as a playful jab, the kind of teasing that couples do. But the moment it left my mouth, I knew it was wrong. Graham's fork stopped midway to his mouth. His face went completely still, like someone had just slapped him. Around the table, the reactions were mixed. Shane let out an uncomfortable laugh, Jules covered her mouth in shock, and Miriam's face darkened with disapproval. "Mom?" Etta's small voice cut through the tension. "What does that mean?" "Nothing, sweetheart," Graham said quietly, setting down his fork. His voice was controlled, but I could see something breaking behind his eyes. "Just grown-up talk." "Oh, come on," I said, trying to salvage the moment with another laugh. "Can't you take a joke? I'm just being honest about our relationship. At least I'm not pretending everything's perfect." Graham looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something I'd never seen before. Not anger, that would have been better. It was disappointment so deep it made my stomach clench. "Excuse me," he said, standing up slowly. He pulled out his wallet and placed several bills on the table, enough to cover the entire meal for 8 people. "Happy birthday, Mum. I'll call you tomorrow." He kissed Etta on the forehead and whispered something in her ear that made her nod solemnly. Then he walked out of the restaurant without another word. "Well," Miriam said, her voice ice-cold as she stared at me, "that was quite a performance, Odessa." "It was just a joke," I protested, but my voice sounded weak even to me. "He's being way too sensitive." "Sensitive?" Miriam's voice rose slightly. "You just humiliated my son in front of his entire family. About his masculinity. How could you think that was appropriate?" Jules reached over and squeezed my hand. "Maybe you should go after him," she suggested quietly. But I was angry now. Angry at Graham for making me look bad by walking out. Angry at Miriam for taking his side. Angry at everyone for acting like I was the villain when all I'd done was make one little joke. "He's the one who walked out on his mother's birthday dinner," I said, crossing my arms. "Maybe if he actually talked to me at home, I wouldn't have to get his attention in public." Shane cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Maybe we should just order dessert?" The rest of the dinner was strained. Miriam barely spoke to me, focusing all her attention on Etta. Jules tried to keep conversations going, but the damage was done. When we finally left the restaurant, I felt like everyone was looking at me differently. On the drive home, Etta was quiet in the back seat. "Is Daddy mad at me?" she finally asked. "No, baby," I said, glancing at her in the rearview mirror. "Daddy's not mad at you. He's just being dramatic." But even as I said it, I couldn't shake the image of Graham's face when I'd made that joke. The way he'd gone completely still, like I'd physically hurt him. The way he'd calmly paid for everyone's dinner before walking out with more dignity than I'd shown all evening. When we got home, Graham's car was in the driveway, but he wasn't in the living room or kitchen. I found him in his study, door closed, light on underneath. I could hear the quiet clicking of his keyboard. I knocked softly. "Graham, can we talk?" The typing stopped, but he didn't answer. "I know you're upset, but you're overreacting," I called through the door. "It was just a joke. Everyone makes jokes about their spouses." Still nothing. I tried the handle, but the door was locked. Graham had never locked his study door before. That night, I lay in our bed alone, staring at the ceiling. Around midnight, I heard Graham come upstairs, but he didn't come to our room. Instead, I heard the guest room door close quietly. As I finally drifted off to sleep, one thought kept circling in my mind, the way Graham had looked at me across that dinner table, like he was seeing me clearly for the first time in years, and like he didn't like what he saw. The next morning, Graham was gone before I woke up. His coffee mug was in the sink, rinsed clean, and there was a note on the kitchen counter, in his precise handwriting, "Taking Etta to school. We'll pick her up too. G. No, good morning. No, love you. Just the facts." I called in sick to work. I couldn't face the office yet, especially knowing Shane would want to dissect last night's drama. Instead, I spent the morning replaying the dinner in my head, trying to figure out how everything had gone so wrong. By afternoon, I was climbing the walls. I needed to talk to someone who would understand, who wouldn't make me feel like a monster for one stupid comment. Jules answered on the second ring. "How are you holding up?" "Everyone's acting like I committed murder," I said, pacing around the kitchen. "It was one joke, Jules. One joke, and suddenly, I'm the worst wife in the world." "It was a pretty harsh joke, Des," Jules said gently. "I mean, questioning his masculinity in front of everyone. Since when is honesty a crime?" I snapped. "Maybe if Graham actually acted like a husband instead of a roommate, I wouldn't have to get creative to get his attention." There was a pause. "Are you saying there are problems in your marriage?" "I'm saying Graham has been distant for months, cold. We barely talk, we barely touch. I feel like I'm married to a stranger." The words poured out of me. And then Shane shows up at dinner, actually engaging with me, actually listening, and I remember what it feels like to be noticed by a man. "Shane?" Jules's voice sharpened. "Graham's friend Shane?" "He's my coworker too," I said defensively. "And he's been nice to me, really nice. We've been having lunch together, staying late to work on cases." "He makes me laugh, Jules. When's the last time Graham made me laugh?" "Odessa," Jules's voice was worried now. "Please tell me you're not—" "I'm not doing anything wrong," I interrupted. "I'm just appreciating someone who appreciates me back." But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't entirely true. Shane and I had been flirting for weeks. Nothing physical, just lingering looks and casual touches and conversations that felt charged with possibility. Yesterday, he'd texted me a photo of a sunset with the message, "Reminded me of you, beautiful and underappreciated." I hadn't shown Graham the text. The next day, I went back to work, dreading the inevitable questions. But Shane surprised me by acting completely normal, greeting me with his usual warm smile. "How's Graham doing?" he asked, as we grabbed coffee in the break room. "He's being ridiculous," I said, giving me the silent treatment over a harmless joke. Shane nodded sympathetically. "Some guys can't handle their wives having a sense of humor. My ex was like that. Everything was a personal attack." I felt a flutter of validation. Exactly. I was just being playful. You were being honest, Shane said, his voice dropping lower. There's nothing wrong with acknowledging when you're not getting what you need at home. Our eyes met and held for a moment longer than appropriate. I felt heat rise in my cheeks. Shane, Odessa. Our coworker Jennifer appeared in the doorway, looking uncomfortable. Can I talk to you for a second? I followed her to her cubicle, where she glanced around nervously before speaking. Look, I don't usually get involved in personal stuff, she said quietly, but people are talking about last night. My stomach dropped. Talking about what? Graham's cousin posted about the dinner on Facebook. Something about family drama and respecting your spouse. It's pretty obvious what she's referring to. Jennifer's expression was sympathetic but concerned. And now with you and Shane. What about me and Shane? Come on, Odessa. Everyone's noticed. The long lunches, staying late together, the way you two look at each other. She sighed. I'm just saying, maybe now isn't the best time to be so visible with him. I wanted to argue, to tell her she was seeing things that weren't there. But the truth was, Shane and I had been visible, and part of me had wanted to be noticed. That evening, Graham came home with Etta and immediately started making dinner. He moved around the kitchen with quiet efficiency, setting the table for 3, helping Etta with homework while pasta boiled on the stove. How was your day? I asked, trying to sound casual. Fine, he replied without looking up from Etta's math worksheet. Graham, we need to talk about what happened. Not in front of Etta, he said firmly. After dinner, after Etta was in bed, I tried again. Graham was in the living room, reading architectural magazines. Okay, I said, sitting down across from him. Let's talk. He looked up at me with those calm grey eyes. What would you like to say? I want to apologize for embarrassing you at dinner. That wasn't my intention. He nodded slowly. What was your intention? The question caught me off guard. I wanted to lighten the mood. Everyone was so quiet. By questioning my ability to be a father. By making a joke about your height, I corrected. You're being way too sensitive about this. Something flickered across his face. Am I? Yes, God, Graham, it's like walking on eggshells around you. I can't say anything without you taking it personally. You told our entire family that I'm too small to be a proper father figure, he said quietly. In what universe is that not personal? It was a joke about your height. No, Odessa, it was a joke about my masculinity, about my adequacy as a man and a father. He set down his magazine. And you made it in front of our daughter. That hit me harder than I expected. Etta didn't understand. She understood enough to ask what it meant. She understood enough to spend the car ride home asking if Daddy was okay. Guilt twisted in my stomach, but I pushed it away. Look, I'm sorry if your feelings got hurt, but maybe if you actually talked to me, actually paid attention to me, I wouldn't have to make jokes to get a reaction. Graham studied my face for a long moment. Is that what this is about? Attention? It's about feeling like I'm married to a ghost, I said, my voice rising. When's the last time we had a real conversation? When's the last time you asked about my day, or told me I looked nice, or acted like you were happy to see me? When's the last time you asked about my day? He countered quietly. I opened my mouth to respond, then closed it. I couldn't remember. I see, Graham said, standing up. Well, I think we both have some things to consider. He headed toward the stairs, then paused. By the way, I'll be working late the rest of this week. Don't wait up. As I watched him go, I felt a strange mix of victory and unease. I'd made my point about our marriage problems, but something about Graham's calm acceptance of my complaints felt wrong, like he was filing away information rather than fighting for us. Later that night, I got a text from Shane. Hope you're okay. Here if you need to talk. I stared at the message for a long time before responding. Thanks. I might take you up on that. I deleted the conversation thread before going to bed. The tension at home continued for the rest of the week. Graham kept his word about working late, leaving early and coming home after Etta was asleep. When we did cross paths, he was polite but distant, treating me like a houseguest he barely knew. Meanwhile, Shane had become my lifeline at work. He brought me coffee in the mornings, listened to me vent about Graham's coldness, and made me feel like someone still found me interesting. Our conversations grew more intimate, more charged with possibility. "You deserve better than the silent treatment," he told me Friday afternoon as we worked late on a complicated claim. "A woman like you shouldn't be ignored." His hand brushed mine as he reached for a file, and neither of us pulled away immediately. "Shane," I whispered, but I didn't know how I wanted to finish that sentence. "I know," he said quietly. "I know this is complicated, but I can't pretend I don't have feelings for you." My heart hammered in my chest. Here was someone who saw me, who wanted me, who wasn't treating me like I was invisible. "I have feelings too," I admitted. We didn't kiss that night, but we came close. Close enough that I went home feeling guilty and exhilarated, and more alive than I'd felt in months. Saturday morning brought Etta's school spring festival, one of those mandatory family events where parents pretend to enjoy overpriced hot dogs and amateur face painting. Graham and I had barely discussed it, but we both showed up, maintaining the facade of a happy family. "Mommy, Daddy!" Etta ran toward us across the playground, her face lighting up at seeing us together. "Come see my art project." For a moment, watching our daughter's joy, I felt hopeful. Maybe this event would remind Graham what we were fighting for. Maybe we could find our way back to each other. Then I saw Shane across the courtyard with his wife Lisa, and my stomach did a complicated flip. "Look, there's Shane," I said to Graham, testing his reaction. Graham's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "So I see." We made our way through the festival, stopping at Etta's classroom display, buying raffle tickets, making small talk with other parents. On the surface, we looked like any other family. But I could feel the distance between Graham and me like a physical thing. When we ran into the Hendersons, parents from Etta's class, I saw an opportunity to seem normal, happy, connected. "Odessa, Graham." Susan Henderson waved us over. "How are you two?" "Great," I said brightly, "just enjoying this beautiful day." "Your husband's been working so hard lately," Susan said to me. "Mike was telling me about that downtown project. So impressive." I felt Graham tense beside me. Here was my chance to be supportive, to build him up publicly. Instead, I heard myself saying, "Oh yes, Graham's always working on something big. I think he's trying to make up for being a little short in other areas." The words were out before I could stop them. Susan's smile faltered, and her husband Mike looked uncomfortable. I continued, unable to stop myself. "He's so focused on his buildings. Sometimes I wonder if he's forgotten how to focus on anything else, like his family." Graham went very still beside me. When I glanced at him, his face was completely blank. "Well," Susan said awkwardly, "we should go find the kids." As they hurried away, I realized other parents had overheard. I caught whispers and sideways glances, saw people quickly averting their eyes when I looked their direction. "Des." Graham's voice was quiet but firm. "We need to leave." "What? Why? We just got here." "Because you just humiliated both of us in front of our daughter's school community," he said, still speaking quietly but with an edge I'd never heard before. "And I won't stand here and let you do it again." I was just making conversation. You were making jokes about our marriage and my masculinity. Again. In front of people who will remember this on Monday morning when they drop their kids off at school. Heat flooded my cheeks as I realized he was right. Around us, parents were definitely staring now, whispering behind their hands. "Graham, I didn't mean—" "Daddy?" Etta appeared at his side, looking confused and worried. "Are we leaving? I wanted to get my face painted." Graham's expression softened immediately as he knelt down to her level. "I know, sweetheart, but Daddy has a headache, and I think we should go home." "Can Mommy stay with me?" Etta asked hopefully. Graham glanced up at me, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Not anger, not hurt, something colder and more final. "Mommy can stay if she wants," he said carefully, "but I'm going to go home and rest." "I want to go with you," Etta said immediately, wrapping her arms around his neck. As I watched my husband and daughter walk away together, leaving me standing alone in a crowd of whispering parents, I felt the first real stab of fear. I pulled out my phone and texted Shane, "Can you talk? Having a rough day." His response came quickly. "At school thing with Lisa, maybe later." I looked around the festival, at the families playing games together, at the couples holding hands, at the life I was somehow managing to destroy with my own words. For the first time since this whole mess started, I wondered if I was the problem. But that thought was too scary to hold on to for long. By the time I got home, I'd convinced myself that Graham was overreacting again, that he was making me the villain to avoid dealing with our real problems. I found him in his study with the door locked again. This time, I could hear him on the phone, speaking in low, serious tones. "Yes, I understand the timeline," he was saying. "And you think we have enough documentation already?" My blood went cold. Documentation? For what? I pressed my ear to the door, but his voice dropped even lower. All I could make out were fragments, custody arrangements, financial records, protecting my daughter. When the call ended, I knocked on the door. "Graham, who are you talking to?" No answer. "Graham, open this door right now. We need to discuss what happened today." I heard his chair creak, footsteps approaching the door, but instead of opening it, he spoke through the wood. "I think we're past the discussion phase, Odessa." Something in his tone made my hand shake. What does that mean? It means I'm done being humiliated. I'm done having my marriage and my masculinity turned into entertainment for strangers. And I'm done pretending this is fixable. "You're being dramatic." "Am I?" His voice was calm, which somehow made it more terrifying. "Because from where I'm standing, my wife has publicly mocked me twice in 1 week, is carrying on an emotional affair with my former friend, and seems to think it's all justified because she's not getting enough attention at home." My mouth went dry. "I'm not having an affair." Silence. "Graham, I'm not having an affair with Shane." "Aren't you?" The question hung in the air like a bomb about to explode. Because the truth was, I didn't know how to answer it. What Shane and I had been doing. Was it an affair? We hadn't kissed, hadn't slept together. But the emotional intimacy, the secrecy, the way my heart raced when I saw his name on my phone. "I need some time to think," Graham said finally. "I'm going to stay at my mother's tonight." "You can't just leave." "I can, and I am. Etta's coming with me." "Like hell she is." Panic flared in my chest. "You can't take my daughter away from me." "I'm not taking her away. I'm protecting her from whatever this situation is becoming." I heard him moving around in the study, gathering things. When the door finally opened, he had a small overnight bag and his laptop case. "Graham, please, let's just talk about this like adults." He looked at me with those grey eyes, and I saw something that made my knees weak. Pity. "I tried talking, Odessa. You turned it into a joke. Twice." He walked past me toward the stairs, calling for Etta. I followed, desperate. "This is insane. You're breaking up our family over a couple of stupid comments." Graham paused at the bottom of the stairs. "I'm not breaking up our family. You already did that." As I watched him pack Etta's overnight bag, explaining gently that they were going to have a sleepover at Grandma's house, I felt my world tilting off its axis. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Graham was supposed to get jealous, fight for me, prove that he still cared. He wasn't supposed to just leave. After they drove away, I sat in our empty house and called Jules. "He's lost his mind," I told her. "He's acting like I cheated on him or something." "Did you?" Jules asked quietly. "No, God, why does everyone keep asking me that?" "Because you've been talking about Shane a lot lately, and because emotional affairs are still affairs, Des." I hung up on her. That night, alone in our bed, I stared at the ceiling and tried to figure out how everything had gone so wrong so fast. All I'd done was make a couple of jokes and enjoy some attention from a coworker. That didn't make me a monster, did it? Graham and Etta didn't come home Sunday. When I called his mother's house, Miriam answered with ice in her voice. "They're not available right now, Odessa." "Not available, it's my daughter, Miriam. Put her on the phone." "Etta is taking a nap and Graham is processing some things. Perhaps you should give them space." "Space? I'm his wife." "Are you?" Miriam's voice was sharp. "Because from what I witnessed at dinner, you seem to have forgotten that." I hung up, furious. How dare she judge me? How dare any of them act like I was the villain when Graham was the one who'd abandoned his family over hurt feelings? Monday morning brought new humiliations. At work, I could feel people staring, whispering. The school festival incident had clearly made the rounds of parent gossip networks, and several of my coworkers had kids at Etta's school. Shane avoided me all morning. When I finally cornered him in the break room, he looked uncomfortable. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual. "Rough weekend. Could use a friendly ear." "Odessa," he said, glancing around nervously. "Maybe we should cool it for a while. Lisa heard about what happened at the school thing, and she's asking questions." My heart sank. "What kind of questions?" "About us. About whether we're, you know." He ran a hand through his hair. "Look, I care about you, but I can't have my marriage blown up over this. Lisa's already suspicious." "So you're just going to abandon me too?" "I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm being smart. Maybe you should try it." He walked away, leaving me standing alone by the coffee machine, feeling more isolated than ever. That evening, Graham finally brought Etta home. Our daughter ran to me with desperate relief, clinging to me like she'd been afraid I'd disappeared. "I missed you, Mommy," she whispered into my neck. "I missed you too, baby," I said, shooting Graham a pointed look over her head. "So much." Graham set Etta's bag down by the stairs but didn't come any further into the house. "We need to establish some ground rules," he said quietly. "Ground rules? In my own home?" "Our home, which means we both have to live here until things are sorted out." "Until what things are sorted out?" He ignored the question. "I'll be staying in the guest room. We'll alternate putting Etta to bed and handling morning routines. All communication about Etta goes through the family calendar app." "Graham, this is ridiculous." "And no more public commentary about our marriage or my personal qualities, especially not in front of Etta or her school community." "I never said anything in front of Etta." "You made jokes about my adequacy as a father figure while she was sitting right there," he said calmly. "That stops now." After he went upstairs, I tried to pump Etta for information about their weekend at Grandma's. "Did Daddy seem sad, sweetie?" Etta nodded solemnly. "He was on the phone a lot, and he had papers spread out on Grandma's kitchen table." "What kind of papers?" "I don't know, but Grandma kept bringing him coffee and patting his shoulder." That night, I lay awake listening to Graham move around in the guest room. Around midnight, I heard him go downstairs to his study. The door clicked shut and I heard the faint sound of his printer running. The next morning, I waited until Graham left for work, then tried his study door. Still locked. But when I went outside to get the mail, I noticed something. Graham's car had a small dash camera mounted on the windshield. When had he installed that? At work, Shane continued to avoid me. Without his attention and support, I felt adrift, invisible again. The whispers and sideways glances from coworkers made everything worse. Wednesday night, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I waited until Graham was asleep, then crept downstairs with a screwdriver from the kitchen junk drawer. If he wanted to keep secrets, fine, but I had a right to know what was going on in my own house. The study door lock was simple, just a basic privacy lock that popped open with pressure in the right spot. Inside, Graham's usually neat space was covered with organized piles of papers, folders labeled with dates, and his laptop open to what looked like a legal document. My hands shook as I rifled through the papers. Bank statements, copies of text messages. How had he gotten those? Photos from the school festival showing me talking to the Hendersons, their uncomfortable expressions clearly visible. In one folder labeled Timeline, I found a detailed log of events. March 15th, public humiliation at mother's birthday dinner. Witnesses present. March 22nd, second public incident at Etta's school. Multiple parents witnessed inappropriate comments about marriage and masculinity. March 23rd, confirmed ongoing emotional relationship with S. Marwick via office surveillance and witness statements. Office surveillance, witness statements. I kept reading, my horror growing. Graham had been documenting everything. Every late night I'd stayed at work with Shane, every text message, every public incident. He even had a statement from Jennifer about the office gossip regarding Shane and me. At the bottom of the folder was a business card. Patricia Williams, family law attorney. My legs gave out and I sank into Graham's desk chair. This wasn't about hurt feelings or needing space to think. Graham was building a case. Against me. I heard footsteps on the stairs and quickly shoved everything back where I'd found it, but I wasn't fast enough. The study door opened just as I was trying to close the timeline folder. Graham stood in the doorway in his pajamas, looking at me with complete calm. "Find what you were looking for?" he asked. "Graham, I can explain. You broke into my private space and went through my personal documents." His voice was steady, matter of fact. "I assume you saw the legal consultation materials." I stood up slowly, my heart hammering. "You're actually going to divorce me? Over a couple of stupid jokes?" "I'm going to divorce you because you've been having an emotional affair, because you've publicly humiliated me and our family multiple times, and because you just proved you have no respect for boundaries or privacy." "It's not an affair. Shane and I never what? Never flirted, never shared intimate conversations about your marriage, never stayed late at work together while I was home taking care of our daughter." I couldn't deny any of it because it was all true. "Graham, please. I know I've made mistakes, but we can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can work things out." "Can we? Because from where I'm standing, you're not sorry about what you did. You're sorry you got caught." He stepped further into the study, and I noticed he was holding his phone. "Are you recording this?" I asked, panic rising in my throat. "I'm protecting myself and my daughter from further emotional manipulation," he said calmly. "Which, based on your behavior tonight, was the right call." I felt trapped, desperate. "You can't take Etta away from me. I'm her mother." "I'm not trying to take her away. I'm trying to protect her from the chaos you've created." His grey eyes were steady, resolved. "I'm filing for divorce, Odessa, and I'm asking for primary custody." "Based on what? I'm a good mother." "Based on your affair, your public behavior, your inability to maintain appropriate boundaries, and your willingness to break into private spaces when you don't get your way." He gestured to the scattered papers on his desk. All documented, all witnessed, all admissible. I stared at him. This man I'd been married to for 7 years, and realized I didn't know him at all. The quiet, passive Graham I thought I'd married had been building a careful, methodical case against me while I'd been busy feeling sorry for myself. "This is insane," I whispered. "You're destroying our family." "No, Odessa. You did that the moment you decided Shane Marwick was more important than your marriage." As I stumbled out of the study and back upstairs, one thought kept echoing in my head. How long had he been planning this? How long had he been watching, documenting, building his case while I thought he was just being distant and cold? And more terrifying still, what else did he know that I didn't? The next morning, Graham was gone before I woke up, but he'd left a printed email on the kitchen counter. It was from Etta's school, requesting a meeting with both parents to discuss recent concerns about family stability affecting student welfare. My hands shook as I read it. Someone had reported our public arguments to the school administration. Someone had told them our marriage was in trouble, and it was affecting Etta. I called Graham immediately. "You did this," I said the moment he answered. "You reported us to the school." "I didn't report anything," he said calmly. but I'm not surprised someone did. You made quite a scene at the festival. Graham, please, we can't let this get any worse. Think about Etta. I am thinking about Etta. That's all I've been thinking about. There was something final in his tone that made my stomach clench. What does that mean? It means I've made some decisions. We'll discuss them tonight after Etta goes to bed. He hung up before I could respond. At work, things went from bad to worse. Shane had apparently requested a transfer to a different department, effective immediately. When I tried to corner him in the parking garage, he looked genuinely frightened. Odessa, you need to stop. Lisa knows everything. She's threatening to call Graham directly. Let her call him. Maybe then he'll realize other people have problems too. Are you insane? Shane backed away from me. I could lose my job over this. We both could. So that's it. You're just going to pretend nothing happened between us. Nothing did happen between us, he said firmly. We were friends. We talked. That's it. That's not it, and you know it. It has to be it. He looked around nervously. Graham called me yesterday. My blood went cold. He what? He called me, very polite, very calm. Said he wanted to clear the air about any misunderstandings regarding his wife and me. Shane's face was pale. He suggested it would be best for everyone if we maintained professional distance going forward. He threatened you? He didn't have to threaten me. He just laid out all the facts very clearly. The late nights, the lunches, the text messages. He knows everything, Odessa, everything. As Shane walked away, I felt the walls closing in around me. Graham wasn't just building a case, he was systematically dismantling my support system, cutting off my allies, isolating me. That evening, the school meeting was a nightmare. Principal Martinez and the guidance counselor sat across from Graham and me in uncomfortable plastic chairs, discussing our daughter like she was a case study. Etta has been showing signs of stress, the counselor said gently. She's been asking her teacher questions about divorce, about where children live when parents don't live together anymore. I shot Graham a furious look. Someone's been filling her head with ideas. No one's filling her head with anything, Graham said quietly. She's 7, not stupid. She can sense tension. The point is, Principal Martinez continued, we want to make sure Etta has stability and support during this difficult time. We're recommending family counseling and asking that any marital discussions be kept away from school events. The meeting ended with forms to sign and resources to review. As we walked to our cars, I tried one more time. Graham, this is getting out of hand. Can't we just go to counseling like they suggested? Try to work things out. He stopped walking and turned to face me. In the parking lot, lights, his face looked tired but resolved. Odessa, do you love me? The question caught me completely off guard. What? It's a simple question. Do you love me? I opened my mouth to say yes automatically, then stopped. Did I love him? Or did I just love the security he provided, the life we'd built together? Of course I love you, I said finally. Do you? Because for months you've acted like I was an inconvenience. You've mocked me publicly, carried on an emotional affair with my friend, and shown more interest in getting attention from other men than in fixing our marriage. That's not... When's the last time you asked about my work, my dreams, my fears? His voice was still calm, but there was pain underneath it. When's the last time you looked at me like you were happy to see me? I couldn't answer because I couldn't remember. That's what I thought, he said softly. You don't love me, Odessa. You love the idea of being married. You love having someone to blame when you're unhappy. That's not true. Isn't it? Because the moment you felt neglected, instead of talking to me about it, you turned to Shane. Instead of working on our marriage, you decided to humiliate me in public. Tears stung my eyes. Graham, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know I've made mistakes, but sorry isn't enough anymore. He pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. I wanted to give you this privately, away from Etta. My hands trembled as I took the envelope. Inside were legal papers, a petition for dissolution of marriage, and a detailed custody proposal. "You're really doing this?" I whispered. "I'm protecting myself and my daughter from further damage." I scanned the custody arrangement with growing horror. Graham was asking for primary physical custody, with me getting alternating weekends and one evening per week. "You can't take my daughter away from me." "I'm not taking her away. I'm providing her with a stable home environment while ensuring you have regular visitation." "Visitation? She's my daughter." "She's our daughter, and she deserves better than what we've been giving her." That night, after Graham calmly explained to Etta that Mommy and Daddy were going to live in different houses, but that she would still see both of us all the time, I sat in our bedroom surrounded by legal papers and tried to figure out how my life had imploded so completely. I called Jules, desperate for support. "He's taking everything," I sobbed into the phone. "The house, Etta, everything." "What do you mean he's taking the house?" I looked at the papers again. Graham wasn't asking for the house. He was proposing to sell it and split the proceeds. He'd already found a smaller place closer to Etta's school. "He's got it all figured out," I said, "like he's been planning this for months." "Maybe he has been," Jules said quietly. "Des, you've been complaining about your marriage for over a year. Maybe he's been unhappy too." "Whose side are you on?" "I'm on the side of reality. You had an emotional affair, you humiliated him publicly multiple times, and now you're shocked that there are consequences." I hung up on her too. The next morning, I woke up to find Graham in the kitchen making breakfast for Etta, both of them laughing at something on her tablet. They looked happy, relaxed in a way I hadn't seen in months. When Etta saw me, her smile faltered slightly. "Morning, Mummy," she said carefully. "Morning, baby." I kissed the top of her head and tried to act normal. "What's so funny?" "Daddy showed me pictures of my new room at his apartment," she said. "It has a window seat where I can read." My heart clenched. "That sounds nice." Graham handed me a cup of coffee, black, the way I liked it. Even in the middle of divorcing me, he was still taking care of small details. "The papers are on the counter," he said quietly. "My lawyer suggests you get your own representation." As I watched my husband and daughter finish breakfast together, chatting about her upcoming school project, I realized something that made me feel sick. They were going to be fine without me. Better than fine, maybe.